Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to IYX Radio. Today we have a special guest with us, Kirsten Runke from MoonTime Africa Sanitary Pads, and my sister Robin over here will be helping me interview this lovely lady. So let's get into our session.
Yes, this video is about our Menstrual Girls campaign. We want to tell you guys more about the campaign and also more about our partner, Kirsten from MoonTime Africa. So we will be asking her quite a few interesting questions. And the Menstrual Girls campaign is a fundraising campaign that provides women and adolescent girls with reusable sanitary pads, mainly women and girls in rural and remote areas who don't have access to basic needs and who don't have access to sanitary products. So we are raising funds to purchase a good amount of these pads for lots of women and girls. And if you guys would like to donate, please follow the steps in the description of this video. And yeah, we'll go ahead and talk more about Moontime and Festival Goals.
Okay, so Kirsten, thank you again for being here. We would love to learn more about you, your inspiring self, and please tell us a bit more about what inspired Moonshine Africa.
Thank you so much for having me and giving me this opportunity to share about the pads, because education and getting people to know that it is an option and that reusable pads are out there, it really does help. So thank you. I was born in Johannesburg and went traveling around the world after school as my university of life, and always knew that I wanted to do something that would make a difference. I've always been very passionate about Mama Earth and loving and respecting her, and just people and their journeys and how to make a difference. So yeah, I did many amazing things, and I'd studied body talk as it's a form of energy medicine. So that got me to know a little bit more about the spirit and the body. And then I opened a skills development center in Johannesburg, which definitely opened my eyes to a lot of things about myself and about community. It ignited my community passion. And then yeah, I realized I wanted to leave the city, so I left Johannesburg and went on an adventure and found myself in the wilderness. And I've been here for the last 12 years and done many interesting jobs and different projects here. And then a really good friend of mine, Anya, she was going to start a pad business with someone else and it didn't work out. And she came to me with the pads. She's a clothing designer. She came to me with the pads and said, try these out. What do you think? And I loved them. And we decided to start MoonTime. So we started MoonTime as a PTY to get into shops and, sort of retail stuff. But then we really wanted to make a difference to communities. So we started MoonTime Community NPC, which is our nonprofit company. And then at the end of 2020, Anya left the business. She went to follow her other passions. And now it's me flying the MoonTime flag solo. And this is where I find myself.
This is amazing.
Yes, wow, such an interesting story. Um, Thank you so much for telling us more about Moontime. I'd like to hear from you why you feel it's important for women and young girls to prioritize their menstrual health and their menstrual hygiene.
Well, I think menstruation has been such a taboo subject and the most shunned, put aside subject. And I mean, we wouldn't be having this conversation if women didn't bleed. If women didn't bleed, there would be no birth in this world. So for me, it is one of the most sacred processes of a human body. And I think it's really important for us as women, to know our bodies. So, I mean, we get the four different cycles in our menstrual cycle. So when we're ovulating, we're menstruating, and then it's premenstrual, and so they all come with different, what would the right word be? Different aspects to it, to be polite. And I think if we know and honor where we're at, we can best support ourselves through supplements, through food, And also just knowing that, so if you are in your premenstrual and your inner critic is out and screaming, don't go shopping and try to find a new look, because whatever you see in the mirror, you're not going to like, because of where you're at in your hormonal balances. So, I mean, when I was growing up, the periods were the curse. So it was just every month you get the curse, you deal with it, you do whatever. It wasn't such a bad thing, but it wasn't actually honored for the process that it is. So I think for us as women, we can realize that bleeding is actually a superpower. And if we can harness the energy, we can support ourselves and women as a whole.
Wow,
This is
yes.
real truth, eh? Yeah, we've been so disconnected from our innate power, that comes through menstruation as a woman. Thank you for that. Um, so, Kirsten, how can women increase their knowledge of menstrual health and hygiene? And do you know of any resources that exist that can give us more information about menstrual wellness?
So there are a lot of resources out there. Two very good books that I highly recommend are Period Queen by Lucy Peach. A very easy read. It's light, it's funny, and it's really easy to relate to. So that I absolutely loved reading, and helped me a lot with sort of learning about the cycle and the different phases and what we can do. And then there's also another book called Wild Power by Alexander Pope and Shani Hugo Wurlitzer, which is also excellent and very, very insightful. And then I do recommend sort of having a period app, so a period tracking app. So I use Flow on my phone. There's Clue, there's many different ones. It shows you what day you're on, sort of how many days your period's going to be coming, if you're ovulating, if it's, how the chances are of getting pregnant. So that really helps as well. And as well as on our Facebook and Instagram, we very often post about different things and resources, and otherwise the good old internet. Yeah, googling food to support the menstrual cycle, the different phases. There's another woman, Bea Herter. She's got the Healthy Hormone Club, and she's got a monthly newsletter, and she does workshops, and she's also got a lot of very, very fabulous information.
Wow, yes.
Tell me, sorry, would you say like our general clinics, our clinics and our health, places to go as just the normal South African, do you think that they provide good enough or, up to date, sufficient information for women?
I mean, I haven't been to sort of so many of the clinics, but it's more of a sort of just straight practical, less of the holistic approach of what is actually happening, not only physically to our bodies, but to our hormones, to our emotions. So I don't feel that we are educated enough. I don't feel like they're well enough equipped to be able to pass the information on. I mean, they do obviously have good information, and they provide the care that's needed, but I do feel that there are definitely extra levels that could be shared in support of women and our menstrual cycle.
Yeah, definitely. And I can also relate to what you said about that app because I have a similar app. It's called Maya, and I've been using it since I was in high school. And it basically does the exact same thing. You could either use it to prevent pregnancy or to get pregnant. And you can put all kinds of notes in there, and they do give you like every day. There's a whole like page, like a whole blog based on where you are on your cycle that day and just
Yes.
to keep in mind. It's really nice to be able to have those kinds of things. And also I've noticed it is still such a taboo topic, menstruation, even though it's so natural and like you said, none of us would be here without the cycle. Um and I think it's also nice that I'm seeing quite a few women sharing the experiences of their cycles and information. There's this one blogger, I think her Instagram name is In Her Form. I think you know her, Sherry. And
Yes.
okay, you also know her.
Mm-hmm.
And she also compared the menstrual cycle to the life cycle of flowers. And that was so interesting to me how similar it is, but it's the same thing, like essentially in nature, the same kind of cycle.
It's also the same as with the moon and the tides, and we're all so connected. And I think us as humans, we've become so disconnected. Everything just kind of is, and there's so many external things that the actual rhythms of our body and the earth, it kind of got missed along the way. And that's where I think that also women's circles, red tents, things where we as women come together to share in our experiences, to learn from each other, and just to realize that we're not alone, because I think it can be quite a lonely journey. We kind of like bleed on our own because nobody must know, or nobody. And it's just, I think we really do need to honor the what we're actually going through. And I think quite often when we are bleeding, we just kind of get on with it, take two painkillers, carry on with normal life, instead of taking a moment of like, wow, I'm actually shedding the lining of my uterus, which could potentially bring life. And it's not the most amazing experience, obviously, to bleed every month and having to deal with it. But I think if we change our mindset and we consider it the blessing that it is, it can become a beautiful process rather than something that we dread every month. I know that it's changed for me personally in my experience of it being my business. And, now I'm so grateful that I am still bleeding while I'm doing this, and that in my bleeding life, I got a chance to go there, because I think a lot of women that are sort of older generations, they weren't exposed to this. So they never got the opportunity.
I mean, I just want to talk about, like, I was just thinking about my group of friends. I would say about 60% of them, when we talk about period, when we talk about just our menstrual cycle, it's just a don't talk about that type of thing, whereas 40% of them,
Wow.
they're so open, they're so open. And it's like, what can we do? Not that we are here to, pressurize or whatever, but we are here to be guides and to support our friends. So, what can we do as sisters, fellow sisters, to help support and educate and guide our sisters into a space of getting to know themselves and not shunning themselves, not shaming themselves during this time, and about this particular topic.
I think the best way to approach that is to be so comfortable with it within yourself that you just share your personal experience. So instead of trying to say it should be a certain way, or you in touch with your menstrual cycle, you learn something new about the phases, or you had that resource, and you just share it, because the more we talk about it and the more comfortable it becomes, the more comfortable people around us are. So for me, I've been doing a lot of networking things in George, and quite often it's middle-aged Afrikaans men who they were like, oh my goodness, here comes the pad lady talking about it. By the end of it, they were coming and asking questions, because I made it such a normal, comfortable conversation that in the beginning they were all freaked out about it. But then they actually realized, they've got wives and sisters and mothers, and it's so normal. So I think the more we individually can make it normal and be comfortable about talking about it and have a laugh about it, I think people generally will become more comfortable. And that's what we can do, from ourselves. That's just what I've been doing.
Definitely. Um, Thank you so much. Rob and I just have one more question for Kirsten. Kirsten, talking about the male, talking about the men, in this particular topic, it's so important that we get that balance between the feminine and the masculine. Without the masculine there to hold us and to allow us space to be and to see the beauty in who we are as the feminine, I don't think that, yeah, I think it's really important. I think it's really important. So yeah, thank you for bringing the male, aspect into that as well.
Yes, no, it's definitely important, and I also, like you said, it should be an individual. Everyone should be normalizing it within their own spaces, and I think that's also what I've done with my partner. Even though he's male, I'm always speaking about my cycle and where I'm at, because it definitely changes my mood, my way of thinking, my life, basically, like everything.
Absolutely.
Yes. I do think it's really important that all of us do normalize it within our own spaces. Because maybe when someone who did feel that it was like taboo and uncomfortable, maybe they would feel a bit more open to learning something or speaking on their own experience. Um,
Absolutely.
yes. So our Prayers for Our Girls fundraising campaign has highlighted so many concerns, and one of them being that disposable pads, the ones that we are all used to, the ones that most of us have been using most of our lives, they contain all of these chemicals that are harmful to our developmental health and our reproductive health. And this is based off not only research but also my personal experience. When I did use pads, I got these horrible rashes. They were so uncomfortable, and that's why I turned to using tampons, even though they're not comfortable. But that's like the only. It was like the only other option at the time. It seemed like the only other option at the time. And so I just would like to hear from you, what are the benefits of using reusable pads with regards to health and also the environment?
Okay, so some very scary statistics are one woman in her lifetime will throw away about 14,500 disposable menstrual products, weighing between 150 to 200 kilograms of menstrual product waste. So, I mean, just think of just if we were using of what the three of us would throw away. That's just the three of us on. So, I mean, it's quite mind blowing, and it takes a disposable pad 500 to 800 years to decompose. So the first pad that was ever out there, if it hasn't been burnt, it's still floating out there somewhere. So our grandchildren will still be dealing with the pads that we deal with today, or that we use today, should I say. So that just in itself for me is the most mind-blowing, just the reality. Because, you don't think about it. You're just like, oh, throw one away here and there. So that is a very scary part of, so that's the environmental impact. I mean, they end up in our oceans, in our rivers, on our beaches, and all the natural habitats. And that's just the environmental factor. So when it comes to the chemicals, I mean, a lot of the chemicals, as Robin said, they're disruptors. They're hormone disruptors. They cause rashes and terrible things. I mean, there's toxic shock syndrome. For me personally, when I started using reusable products, my cycle became regular. So I was always had an irregular cycle, and then as soon as there wasn't the interference from chemicals, I actually started getting a regular cycle. So I experienced it firsthand. So, I mean, there's so many pad drives out there, and they're all doing amazing work because it's keeping girls in school and it's an immediate answer. But then the girl needs one for the next month and the next month and the next month. And there are millions and millions and millions of pads being donated out there. So that's why we started MoonTime Community, because the people are wanting to get out there. They're wanting to help the women and the girls in schools, but it's not a sustainable option. And it makes sense to do reusables, but of course, then it's a bit more of a financial outlay, and it's less convenient than just using a pad and throwing it away. But the benefits of using reusable pads are huge, both environmentally and for women's well-being, as well as long-term financially. I mean, if they cost more in the beginning, but they last for 3 to 5 years, so you've made up for the ones that you have to keep replacing with the disposables. So it's basically a win-win all round.
That's for sure. That is definitely for sure. Wow, those stats are crazy. I can't believe that, eh? And
Scary.
waste management is a real thing. It's a real thing, especially with service delivery and. So wow.
Exactly.
Um. So, Kirsten, Pads for Girls was created for women and girls who do not have access to sanitary products, specifically in rural areas. Women and girls who actually fall victim to something called period poverty, which is something that we've been talking a bit about on our social media. Can you recall when and how you became aware of period poverty, and did it spark anything within you?
I think I've always been aware of it just because, it is so out there. So often you go to a shop and they would say donate pads for the girls. And I'd quite often think, how blessed I am that I'm able to go to the shop, get what I need, and that there are many women who don't have that. So I think it was always there. And then as soon as they became that I was able to be part of the solution through an amazing product, then then I was like, wow, I can actually really make a difference.
Amazing,
Yes. Wow, yes. It's definitely really shocking to think that just to understand how blessed we are who live in urban areas, because we still have access to these things, and period poverty isn't as prominent in urban areas as it is in rural areas.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely it's shocking, and so it's really amazing to be part of this to make some kind of change towards that. And I've scanned through your website, and according to MoonTime's website, you guys have been spreading the sad love since 2017. That's a really long time. So
Yeah.
please do tell us about the feedback you've received from your customers about your pets.
We've had a lot of really good feedback. I mean, some women, we get amazing messages just saying, oh, you've changed my life and I can't wait to bleed, which is always one of the best things that I love hearing is when a woman tells me that she can't wait to bleed because she can use MoonTime pads. The tricky thing is if somebody is not a pad wearer, for them to sort of change to pads, it's a big jump. So that's where the menstrual cup comes in as sort of like a tampon replacement. So for some women who have never really used pads, the thought of using pads is a bit of a freaky one for them. So we encourage women to wear pads at night, to get used to it if they're wanting to give it a go. But a lot of women are now a lot more in tune with their cycles, a lot more in tune with their bodies, because also when you have to wash your pad, you get to see what your blood looks like, you get to see how much there is, if there's anything that's not right. And I think just the connection to actually the blood rather than just wrapping it up and throwing it away, there's something in that, and that ignites something within many of the women who have started using MoonTime pads that has sort of got them to learning more about their cycles and feeling more connected to their bodies and to the rhythms. So that's been beautiful. Some people, they're a bit freaked out about washing their own pads. It does sort of freak a few people out, which, it's actually so simple. You just put it in a bucket of cold water, soak it, rinse it, wash it with some soap, rinse it, hang it out to dry, and they're good to go. And then I recommend putting the water in the garden because it is so highly nutritious for the plants. And then you're putting it back into the earth rather than back into the system. And I think that that's been quite a change for quite a few women. And it's quite a few women, they like the idea of it, but actually it takes them a few months, sometimes a few years to actually get to the point where they're like, okay, I'm going to do it. So it is quite a process. It's definitely not an easy sell, and it's sort of a quick fix because it is a bit of a commitment. But I think once people get on it, they love it. They really do. And they're
Yes.
very effective, they're very absorbent, and they're so, they're beautiful and comfortable. And so I think it does help having such a high quality, good product, that women know that they can count on.
Oh, okay. Um, I just have a question. Do you think, just from your perspective, do you think that uncomfortability, do you think that comes from like a place of shame, like not like shame that's been placed on women by society, um, or
I think it's got quite a lot to do with the disconnect. It's
okay,
something that just happens. It's not the actual like how, like, actually like what, like going into it. Because quite often I think it's, a woman will bleed and it's just not even sort of an awareness of actually what's going on. It's just something you've got to deal with and you get on with it. And I think also from a collective tabooness around menstruation, then it's also you want to keep it on the down low and not talk too much about it. And so I think yeah, and I think just the disconnect and the convenience of just being able to deal with something and not really having to look at it or wash it, or you just wrap it and throw it away. It's just easier. And the question is, where is away? I'm just going to throw it away. Well, where is away? Because Sherry, you were saying one of my best bylines is the easiest waste to manage is the waste we did not produce.
Wow.
So that's one of my favorites, because it's, if we're not producing, we don't have to manage it. So yeah, but I mean, it's a whole mindset shift. I mean, when I first started MoonTime, it's taken a long time for people to catch on, and it's still taking time. It's almost as if we're not quite there yet, because we don't have to. We're still at the point where you can still do the disposables. We haven't drowned in a pile of pads yet. People haven't got all the infections and stuff, so it's fine. We'll just keep going until it gets to a point where we can't anymore. And I do believe if we carry on like this, we're going to get there. So yeah, I think a big part of that does have to do with disconnect for us as humans, disconnected from us, from the earth, from each other, which hopefully we'll be able to bring back connection.
Oh, okay. So Kirsten, we spoke about, the number of issues that menstruation and period education highlights, that being the disconnect from self, from nature. And we see, especially in rural areas, that a lot of the women or people don't even have access to basic rights like water. Can you please show us how, or tell us how we can wash these reusable pads? And then also, what is a good way of disposing of the pad once it's reached the end of its life cycle?
So water is a bit of a thing, because we need water to be able to rinse the pads. So we normally do them in like a bucket. So I mean, this is what we provide our MoonTime pads with. I managed to get a pad. You can use any container. So it's basically, if you soak the pad in cold water, because hot water sets blood. So if it's in cold water, so it just needs to be a little bit, just to pull everything out, and then put that onto the garden, and then there is needed some water to rinse it, and a little bit of soap. So water is necessary. I know Q was talking about, boreholes and digging that, which I just thought was the most incredible thought, of making it a joint project of, we're going to be able to provide the pads because you need water, and there's the water as. So, I mean, that definitely ignited something amazing for me. So, I mean, that is the thing, is that you need water to be able to wash them, because you also don't want to leave them unwashed. But not, I think, you can make do with not too much water, but unfortunately there is water that's needed for them. When it comes to disposing of them when they're done, I take off the press studs, just pull them off with like a knife, and then I eco brick them, and then I suggest burning them. Burning is going to be the best. It's 100% cotton and 100% cotton toweling on the inside. There is a dry mac layer which has got a little bit of plastic in it, but for the little bit that it's going to burn of that is going to be a whole lot better than it sitting in the earth or anything. So that's how I would personally do it. Alternatively, you can bury it. But I mean, there'll only be a few after so many years, which is great. So that's how I would suggest disposing of them.
That's amazing. Thank you.
I never actually thought of burning them, but
yeah. Because it's 100% cotton, so it just kind of, and then there's also something in the ceremony of thank you, and back to the earth, because I've got a big thing about sort of putting things as much as we can back to the earth. Obviously not the bad stuff, but if we can just sort of let it go back, I think that's the best option.
Yes, definitely back to the earth. And I also love what you said about like once you've soaked your pad, then throw that water in the garden, because of how nutritious it is. Like, I never thought of that before.
So especially if you've got something, so I actually had an avo tree in my last house, and my landlady came and she was like, "What have you done to the avo tree?" I'm like, "I give it my blood every month." And it's just, so especially stuff, if you've got plants that aren't doing so well, and then it's also a bit of a ceremony, it's actually like acknowledging I'm putting my blood back into the earth. For me, it's just a little bit more of an acknowledgement of like, oh, there we go. Another MoonTime down.
So powerful. Such a powerful.
It really is powerful.
I've also heard about these red tents, like you were talking about, and like She
Mhm.
Academy and these types of, like you said, women's groups that come together and they talk about offering your blood every month
Yes.
to the earth. Can you tell us a bit more from your experience about, I mean, you've just told us a bit, but about these blood rituals and how, you know, a lot of people think, oh, blood, 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 negative, negative, negative. But it's such a beautiful thing that we're doing by putting this back into the earth.
Absolutely. I mean, there's many different rituals that women do. I mean, there's also a lot of people
Mm.
do art with menstrual blood. Some people do it as a face mask, you know, some things. I think it also depends how deep into it you want to go. You know, it's obviously not for everyone. I think that putting it back into the earth is a simple, quite gentle sort of process without, you know, getting too involved. But I think also once you start, you know, once that connection starts and once you start becoming comfortable with your body and your blood, then it will naturally kind of evolve as it does. Because then also you'll read an article, this will present itself, you'll learn something more about that, you'll have a chat to a friend about that, and then it kind of evolves. That's how it has been for, in my experience. You know, it was the introduction of a pad. I'm like, wow, okay. And then it just grew, and then learning so many different things that I had no idea were even out there. And now it's like, wow, okay. And then some things resonate, some things don't. And that's the beauty of having so many different options and so many different things out there, is there's something for all of us. And any little tiny step
Definitely.
towards connection with our own bodies and our own femininity and the blessing of being a woman, I think that that is definitely a leap in the right direction.
I agree.
Fully agree.
Um,
Definitely.
so just to follow up on the waste management topic of before, I did want to ask you, what is the average lifespan of one of your MoonTime pads?
So they'll last pretty much anything from 3 to 5 years. I've had my pads for over 5 years and they're still going strong. But I do look after them very well and I hand wash them. They are machine washable. You know, but obviously if you're going to wash them in the machine every time you use them, it's going to wear and tear them a little bit more. So, but I would say anything between 3 and 5 years.
Okay, okay. And could you please tell us about the other products that you offer on MoonTime other than just pads? Because I know you offer a few.
Yeah, so we do also offer the menstrual cup, which unfortunately I'm going to need to stop stocking because my supplier, things have changed there. But I also very much recommend a menstrual cup for women who use tampons and who want to have an alternative. So I mean, I always recommend a menstrual cup in the day, and when you're out and about or swimming or you know don't want to be wearing a pad, and then pads at night so that you can let your blood flow. We do have some yeah, the menstrual cups aren't going to be available for too much longer on our website, but they are in most health shops. You know, they've also really taken off as well. So that's definitely an option for women to go for. And then we've got a few different herbs to help the menstrual cycle. So for heavy periods, for painful, heading into menopause. We do a little soap, a little boersiep. But yeah, basically our main focus is the pads, and then we do panty liners as well, which are exactly that, just the same as a disposable panty liner, but one that you wash and lasts for years.
Wow, so awesome that we have these options now.
Amazing. Yeah.
Options,
And
good
then
options.
there was also, so talking about options, we know that you have different sizes. And then also, I think we did speak about it briefly before, but how, according to your understanding, how many pads does one individual woman need based on the particular flow, for example?
To be able
So
to,
that all depends if somebody's, sorry, say again,
Yes.
Robin?
just to be able to last the entire cycle each month.
Yeah.
How many
So
would you say?
So, I mean, in a, you know, if somebody, it also does depend on how heavy their flow is, you know, how often they have to change. But anything from sort of 6 to 10 pads is a good range of different sizes. You know, when it comes to when it's, you know, obviously financial, like budget restraints and stuff. I mean, I would say you can get away with 4 because you're wearing one, you've got one to change, one's soaking, one's drying. You know, it also obviously depends on the weather. Is it going to dry in time? So, I mean, even 3 you could get away with. I mean, 3 would be better than nothing. But I would say, you know, in an ideal world, anything from sort of 6 to 10 would be first prize. But 4 would also get you far from, you know, the community-based stuff.
I'm sure the 6 to 10 would be more comfortable because then you're not stressed about like, oh, I need to wash this one
Absolutely.
immediately. And
Absolutely.
this is dry right
Absolutely.
now. Yeah.
Absolutely.
For sure. For sure. And then I've got another question. I saw something weird online. It was a period sponge. I don't know
Ah,
if you've heard of a
yes,
period sponge.
I have.
There's so many different holistic products these days. Do you know much about this period sponge?
So the sponge, I haven't tried it. It is actually a sea sponge. So it is a sponge that comes out the ocean, and it's obviously been washed and whatever needs to be done. So I've actually got a friend who used sponges. So I think it is an alternative, sort of a tampon alternative. So because it's an internal one. I don't know how absorbent it is though. I don't think it would be ideal for sort of a heavy bleeder. But I don't know. But I mean, anything that's natural, I love it.
It's so interesting.
Yeah, there's so
Wow.
many things out there. I also saw somebody who was making crochet tampons.
Whoa, people are creative.
Haven't tried those. Yeah, but you know, we come up with all sorts of amazing things, and I think it's just finding what works for us individually and what we're comfortable with and what feels good in our own bodies, you know, and that does sometimes take a bit of trial and error.
Yes, definitely.
So
I have read something about the menstrual cup because that was something that I was looking into because it's like advertised as like this mess-free alternative. But because I have an IUD, that's really dangerous to use a menstrual cup. So I hope that anyone who's watching, if they interested in a menstrual cup and they have an IUD, they should not do that.
Yes, thank you for that.
and
Yeah.
even like young girls, for young girls, I mean, how does that work as well? Virgins and those types of things. I mean, Q always talks about that as well. He's like, it's a form of trauma, for some people. So yeah, it's important to have options, like you're saying.
Absolutely. I mean, the cups come in different sizes, and it also all depends on the individual. I mean, a lot of women don't want to use anything internally at all. So tampons, they don't want to put anything inside. Some young girls, they've got no problem with it. So I think it's, it is also an education thing. It's also, this is what it is. This is what it's doing. These are the implications, especially for the young girls, and then they can get to choose, and then and see how it feels, because there should be no trauma around anything to do with menstruation. And I think that there has been a lot in the world, and that's where a lot of the downfall has come. Excuse me.
Definitely. So Robin, do you have any last questions, final questions for Kirsten at all?
Well, they would just be we could talk forever about our personal experiences and just the need that there is for more education about our menstrual health and hygiene in schools and just in places where young people are. And I think that as these types of organizations, it's really up to us to educate people, because I don't think that schools are doing good enough of a job at it. Even if we look at it like sex education in South Africa, it's just don't do it or you'll get pregnant and get HIV and you'll die. That's all. It's never like that's what I was taught in high school. It's never like,
really?
yes, hello, life.
Well, that'll put you off for life.
Exactly.
It'll either put you off for life or it'll have you running in the opposite direction.
Exactly.
And that's thing, a lot of youth hide the explorations and stuff, and they don't go to the relevant people or to their parents or to a supportive friend, in times like that. It's really a tough situation. Yeah.
It is,
I
but
think also a lot of the education needs to come into, you know, the people who are donating and the funders and the donors, because, you know, it's also a change in the mindset of why it costs more in the beginning, you know, because, you know, disposable pads are so cheap. You get a pack of cheap pads, there you go, done, tick, sorted. Whereas it's actually, when it comes to a pad that is made with 100% cotton and it's handmade and it's high quality, it's going to cost, you know, and people, it's changing the mindset of making a long-term investment that is going to be a sustainable option. So I think that's also, you know, it's also part of the education for the people who are making the choices of what to donate. Because I think that's, you know, I've come across a lot of that. They love the idea, it makes sense, but it's easier to do that. And that's where we come in, of being able to gently show people a different way, because that's the only way we're going to change anything in this world, and how our grandchildren's aren't dealing with our pads, you know, as if we actually stand up and do something about it one step at a time, which is exactly what we're doing. So just to encourage all the people out there who are wanting to make a difference and invest and donate, it really is a long-term investment for everyone involved.
yes, it's definitely worth it.
Definitely.
Oh, this was such a good conversation, such a good connection. Thank you so much, Kirsten. We really appreciate your time, your energy, and this partnership as well. You know, we really are grateful.
No,
Thank
and
you.
thank you, ladies. It's been very special, and it's so encouraging, just when, you know, knowing that I've got people on my side, you know, who are also wanting to spread the pad love with me, and, you know, fighting the good fight together. It really makes a huge difference. And I do trust in divine timing and divine order, and that, you know, the world needs MoonTime. So that's why I'm still doing it.
Definitely. So just as an ending, we just like to get some information out to our donors. Our goal is to raise 100 Rand for every girl in the San community. Not only the San community, rural communities throughout South Africa, Southern Africa. And yeah, for some more information, you can always email IYX Africa, or you can follow the description in the description box below. We've got two options. We've got a direct transfer to our bank account, or a online link. So yeah, if you have more information, if you want more information, please email us or read the description box below. Thank you. Robin?
Yes. So, Kirsten, can you please tell us where we can find MoonTime? Your website and social links will be in the description, but will you please let us know what your website and social links are for the people listening?
Perfect. So our website is www.moontime.africa. And then we are on Facebook as MoonTime Africa, and Instagram MoonTime Africa. And I definitely recommend liking our pages. We post quite a lot of informative stuff and some funny things along the way, and just, you know, keeping the period talk going. And I mean, we're available in retail stores as well, you know, for women who are wanting to try it. But all those details are on the website.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Our information to IYX Africa's website and social links are also in the description. You're welcome to visit our website at www.iyxafrica.com. And also on social media, we are IYX Africa on Facebook and Instagram. Thank you so much, Kirsten, for joining us and engaging with us. This was such a wonderful conversation, and we hope it reaches lots and lots of women and men and young people all around Southern Africa and the rest of the world.
And thank you so much for the work that you do, and just for having me and giving me the opportunity. And it's so wonderful to be working with you beauties. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay. Well, we're done. So bye bye.